All right, people, I want to give a shout out to a member of my boxing group, Jamie Lincoln, who posed the question in the group. And the question basically was, how damaging would it be for Frank Warren if Billy Joe Saunders loses to David Lemieux, given the fact that James DeGale has just lost his world title, although he wasn't signed to Frank Warren long term. There was the possibility of him doing business with James DeGale long term. How damaging would it be for him to lose Billy Joe Saunders as a world champion? You know, should he lose his belt to Lemieux? Now, just in a boxing sense, Saunders losing to Lemieux wouldn't be quote unquote that bad, because Lemieux's a former world champion himself and he's a good fighter. So it wouldn't be a disgrace for Billy Joe to lose to Lemieux. But from a business perspective, from a strategic perspective, it would be pretty bad. Why do I say this? Because Billy Joe Saunders, as a world title holder, has a very good chance of getting a Triple G or Canelo fight. Canelo is ranked #1 with a WBO currently, and Billy Joe Saunders is the WBO champion. So him versus Canelo looks likely to happen anyway. And Gennady Golovkin has always said that he wants to become undisputed middleweight champion. And therefore, a Billy Joe Saunders Triple G fight also looks pretty realistic, probably for 2018, if Billy Joe had just bided his time. So this Lemieux fight, remember this Lemieux fight is a voluntary defense for Billy Joe Saunders. Not only is it a voluntary defense, but it's in Lemieux's backyard in Canada. It looks like an unnecessary risk that Billy Joe Saunders is taking here. Again, I have to remind you, Canelo is already #1 contender for Billy Joe's belt. Now, some people, and perhaps they're right, so I do want to play devil's advocate here. Some people would say, well, Canelo only received his #1 WBO ranking when, after Billy Joe had already signed to fight Lemieux. So a cynical mind would say it's being set up here for Canelo to fight Lemieux. And that kind of plays into my view. You know, that kind of supports my view. And my view is that Billy Joe has been lured into this situation by HBO and Golden Boy. They've waved a big check in his face and said to him, look, we'll get you that Canelo fight or that Triple G fight if you fight Lemieux. What you have to understand is Lemieux is a HBO and Golden Boy fighter. Billy Joe's being brought in as an opponent. Even though he's the champion, he's not being brought in as a guy who's supposed to win. He's being brought in as a guy who's supposed to lose, because they want Lemieux, the HBO Golden Boy guy, to fight Canelo Alvarez, who's another HBO Golden Boy guy, for a world title. That's what this situation is. Does Billy Joe realize that he's being brought in as an opponent here? Maybe he does. But is the risk worth the reward? I know he's probably going to get a nice payday for this, because Lemieux does good numbers in Canada. And again, he's a HBO guy. But surely Billy Joe would be getting a much bigger payday if he fights Canelo or Triple G. And let's say Billy Joe does beat Lemieux in Canada. Yes, it raises his profile in the United States. But Billy Joe is not a Golden Boy fighter. He's not a HBO fighter. All right. I guess he might be if he manages to beat Lemieux. But my point is, if he looks extra dangerous against Lemieux and beats him, that might actually reduce his chances of getting a Canelo fight at least. It might increase his chances of getting the Triple G fight, possibly, but I would imagine it would reduce his chances of getting the Canelo fight if he looks too impressive against David Lemieux. So, you know, I don't know whether this is the best gamble that Billy Joe has taken in his career. It seems like an unnecessary gamble. Long story short, That's what it seems like to me, an unnecessary gamble. Is he really so hard up for money that he's had to do this? Perhaps so. You know, I'm not criticizing Billy Joe from a fighting perspective. From a fighting perspective, I commend him for taking on a guy as dangerous as David Lemieux in David Lemieux's backyard. I commend him from that perspective, but it kind of reminds me of when Amir Khan fought Lamont Peterson in Washington, D.C. You guys remember that? Most of you had Amir Khan winning the fight, but Khan lost the fight on the cards. He took the fight in Peterson's backyard. I believe that was also a voluntary defense for Khan. And after the fact, people were saying, well, Khan was crazy for fighting Peterson in his backyard when he didn't have to. You know, brave. Yeah, you commend him for being brave and being a real champion and going to other guys' backyards. But sometimes you have to do what's best for yourself financially, because this is prize fighting at the end of the day. You have to protect your interests. There's nothing wrong with fighting dangerous guys. That's good. But try and do it in your own backyard if you can. And if you can't do that, then you might want to wait for an opportunity to fight someone bigger and better than a David Lemieux, like a Canelo or a Triple G, and go fight those guys in their backyards. You'll get a hell of a lot more money, and you'll get a hell of a lot more credit if you manage to beat them than you would if you beat a David Lemieux, a guy who's already lost, what, 3 fights? So those are just my musings on this Billy Joe Saunders, David Lemieux situation with regards to the ramifications if Billy Joe was to lose. For Frank Warren, it would obviously be bad, but he'd come back, he'd survive. Frank Warren's a survivor. I've been following boxing long enough to know that. I know all about Frank Warren and how tough the man is and how determined he is. And losing a Billy Joe Saunders as a world champion would not stop Frank Warren. You know, he's got more fighters coming through the ranks, and as long as he's breathing, he's going to be doing his thing in boxing. But yeah, for Billy Joe, I don't know, man. I don't know. He better hope the gamble pays off. If it does, try not to look too good in victory, or you might not get that Canelo fight. Not like Canelo would be scared of Billy Joe, but you have to understand that Canelo does think about business. Him and Oscar De La Hoya do think about which risk is worth taking at which time. The Triple G rematch is a huge fight commercially, much bigger than taking on a Billy Joe. So would they rather take on if Billy Joe ends up looking extremely impressive against Lemieux, would they rather go that route, or would they rather take the Triple G rematch first and then try to fight Billy Joe? You understand what I'm saying? It's all about risk reward. Would Billy Joe in that scenario be a big enough reward for them to warrant the risk? Because if they were to lose to Billy Joe, that could jeopardize the Triple G rematch. Then Triple G might go after Billy Joe and forget about Canelo. You understand what I'm saying? Anyway, drop your comments in the comment section below and let me know how you feel about this whole situation. All right? It's happening. I'm out.